Greetings, everyone. Tim Anderson here, aka Renfell, and welcome to the latest episode of the Lotro Cooking in Real Life series, where I take recipes from the Lord of the Rings online MMORPG or the Lord of the Rings books, inspired by either one of those sources, and I make delicious recipes here in the home kitchen and share them with you on YouTube as well as over on Patreon, which you can find in the links below. Today's episode is onion soup. Now, I took a little bit of liberty with this recipe and made French onion soup, which is probably slightly different. It doesn't actually say what type of onion soup in the Lord of the Rings online recipe guide, but because I do French onion soup 1 or 2 times a year, it was a great recipe to take and adapt and use for this episode. So, hopefully, you enjoy. It is a delicious soup, and I'm going to tell you, secret ingredient, you got to have vermouth. You can't do it without vermouth, so make sure you pay attention to the recipe guide for my specific version. Don't forget, if you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon so that you get updates when the next episodes of this show are available. Typically, we're doing these a couple times a month, sometimes a little more frequently, but usually about every 2 weeks. And of course, you can find the full recipe at Patreon below, where you can pick up a subscription and get a lot of cool stuff like free copies of books and other things that we do over there as well. And of course, don't forget to check out the Lord of the Rings online streams and the other things we do here on the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into the recipe so that you can sink your teeth into some delicious onion soup with some crunchy bread and cheese, which is the best part. Uh, let's go cook. All right, the first thing you want to do is get your pan nice and hot and put something in here. Some people like olive oil. I like butter for mine. Put in 2-3 tablespoons worth of butter and or olive oil, whatever you want to use. This is what you're going to use to caramelize the onions. Alright, once you've got your butter mostly ready to go, or your oil or whatever nice and hot in there, you can go ahead and start adding in your onions. Now it's important that as you're adding in here, you can go ahead and break them up as you go, kind of like I'm doing here. Doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to be breaking them up even further with the spoon as you continue to add these in here. So if you want to just make a big mess, you just do this. Like I said, if you don't do it with your fingers, you can come in here with the spoon, get them broken up, and start to get everything mixed up in here with the butter that's in the bottom. Now, here's something very important about this overall process. Anybody who tells you that you're going to be able to caramelize, like in this case we used 4 medium onions. Anyone who says that you can caramelize onions in 10 or 15 minutes is full of it. It's going to take anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes to caramelize these, and we will not be adding sugar until later on in the process. So what we're doing right now is we're just getting these in here, and we're getting them all broken up, and we're getting them covered in butter and stirred up. Now you want this on a medium to high heat, and you're going to want to kind of pay attention to it. You don't have to stir them every 30 seconds, but make sure you're stirring every few minutes. It's going to take you probably 30 minutes before you see them start to caramelize, at which point when you first start to see the onions caramelize is when we're going to add the sugar to this recipe. But in the meantime, those are all nice and coated, and we're going to let those cook for 20-30 minutes until we see them start to brown. Alright, so as you can see, we're about 20 minutes in here. We're starting to get a nice brown color to the onions now. They're starting to soften, and they're starting to caramelize on their own. But we're going to go ahead and speed up this process by adding some sugar. Adding the sugar. Now, at the same time that I add the sugar is when I like to add my garlic. I'm going to get that garlic added in there at the same time. Now that the garlic and sugar have been added, we're going to go ahead and stir that up in there. Now this is when you need to start paying attention and actually kind of standing on reserve to stir the onions frequently, because now that we've added sugar, they're going to caramelize very quickly. So over the next 10 to 15 minutes, you're going to want to stir every couple of minutes so that they don't burn. Alright, we're getting pretty close. Not quite there. Probably another 5 or 10 minutes. But as you can see, most of our onions have gone a nice brown color, but we still have quite a bit of white in here. The better flavor comes from a deeper glaze. So, deeper caramelization, I should say. So the browner you get these, the more rich that flavor is going to be. So don't be afraid to take these to a deep brown. Borderline, I mean, you could even, it's up to you. Borderline burn, but don't, obviously. But the deeper the brown, the better the color. All right, so as you can see, we're now in a deep dark brown. We even got a couple of their kind of blackened here, right there, and then we're starting to stick to the bottom of the pan and to the sides of the pan, or the cast iron pot that I'm using. Now's the time when you want to deglaze the pan. So, best way to do this, easiest way, is to take vermouth. You got half a glass, however much you want to put in here. I like to put a little bit like that. Go ahead and start stirring that in here. The objective here is to deglaze the sides and the bottom. I might actually put some more in there. Don't be afraid of it. The alcohol will reduce. It is a nice sweet additional flavor to the add to the pot here. Get that stirred in here. As you said, the objective here is to get everything deglazed. Get all of that ready. Once that's deglazed, you can let that sit here and simmer on a low heat for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then once that's done, we're going to get the broth added to it. Alright, now that we've got the vermouth kind of simmered down here a little bit, we've reduced it a little bit, taken out some of the alcohol content and kind of just reduced it to flavor and sugars, we're going to go ahead and add the broth. Now, you can use a variety of different broths. You can use beef broth, chicken broth, vegetable broth, whatever kind of broth you want to use. I prefer beef broth. You can buy it in a carton, you can buy it in a can, you can buy it in a bouillon, or you can make your own. In this case, we're going to be adding about 3 cups of beef bouillon broth here to this. Normally I use if you can find it in a carton or a can, but the supermarket didn't have any this time, so we just got some bouillon. It's about 3 cups. Add that in here, get that kind of stirred up. Go ahead and throw a few bay leaves in here. You do not need to add any additional salt and pepper unless you want to, because the broth itself, the beef broth, is going to have plenty of seasoning and flavor in it. Of course, one of the key ingredients is thyme, which we're adding here. You can either add it, it's just kind of to taste, a tablespoon or so. I like to go a little heavy on it. It's different for every individual. You can use fresh if you want. I'm just using dried. Go ahead and get that stirred up. Once you've got everything incorporated in here and everything stirred up together, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and cover this and put it on simmer for about 30 minutes, more or less. Alright, we're going to get some bread cut here. You can cut it however you want. I'm just cutting some basic pieces here, as you can see, and we're going to get these in the oven and we're going to cover these in cheese. Alright, next step is to go ahead and get these things covered with cheese. Now, you can use whatever kind of cheese you want. In this case, we're using some queso asadero, which is here in Mexico City, here in Mexico anyway. Queso asadero is a cheese that you can use. It has a very light flavor, and then because I happen to like this a lot, on this other piece I'm putting some mature cheddar. Now you can use whatever kind of cheese you want, doesn't really matter. Once you've got this covered, we're going to put this in the oven for around 15 minutes or so until it melts, and this is going to be what we put inside or on top of the soup. Alright, time to get the bread and cheese into the oven. I don't know, 375 degrees, doesn't really matter. 10-15 minutes until your bread is toasted and that cheese is melted on top, which we will then add to the soup. Alright, time to get that cheese out, nice and golden brown on top. Other than my mature cheddar, which melted a little bit too much, but we're good. Alright, this is nice and hot. I'm gonna get in here and stir this up real quick and go ahead and serve a bowl full of soup, like so. so. And for mine, because I wanted the cheddar cheese one, I'm going to put that in there right there. And I'm going to go enjoy. Alright, everybody. Now is the time where we come in here and we taste test the food. Now, as always, I would remind folks that, you know, recipes for hobbits are always going to be delicious, so don't be afraid to bring your hobbit appetite to the table. Now, this is incredibly hot right now, but oh so delicious. Get some of that bread and cheese in there. Have a bite of that. Oh, that is perfect. A little bit more. That, my friends, is absolutely divine. So this is obviously my take on the onion soup recipe from the Lord of the Rings Online MMORPG. There are a lot of different ways you can make an onion soup. This is my version, which is kind of a spin on a classic French onion soup. You can do it, like I said, in the recipe, in the ingredients. Little tips and tricks for ways that you can make it your own. This is the way I make it. I love it, especially with the vermouth. A lot of people will use brandy, some people will use white wine. I think the vermouth adds a certain extra sweetness to it that is just perfect. So, don't forget, if you haven't done so already, make sure to check the link below to go to the Patreon page where you can pick up the full ingredient list as well as a bunch of photos that are associated with this recipe above and beyond the video that you're watching here. And of course, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to this YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you get updates for when the next video in the series is available or when I go live with a new stream. In the meantime, I'm going to get back in here and finish my lunch. So enjoy, everybody. Bon appetit, buen provecho, etc. See you in the next episode.